The album, when I was putting it together, it was very much kind of a passion project and came from my love for the music and my really sort of deep desire to contribute to my art form and to learn as much as I can. And working with Richard Bonning was just such an honour and such a thrill, you know, because I grew up listening to so many of his recordings and so forth from so long ago. So that was really extraordinary. But the reaction and the response has just been amazing. Like, I didn't really expect it to be so well received, and I'm so happy that people in the UK and Australia and around the world are really embracing it. That's, you know, I feel very humbled that they would do that. But in terms of how it came about, I was at the Wales International Academy of Voice, studying with a man called Dennis O'Neill, who was a bit of a Verdi expert as a tenor, and sort of took over from Pavarotti, I suppose, in particular repertoire. And when I was there, one of the people I was fortunate enough to meet and work with for 1 hour, only 1 hour, was Richard Bonning. And he said to me, we have to find a reason to work together again soon. And out of the blue, I went home to Australia, and after I finished my studies at the Wales International Academy of Voice, and the phone rang. It was a Thursday night around dinner time. I thought it was my mum. I nearly answered with like, oh, hi mum. And for some reason I didn't. Thank goodness. And it was Maestro Bonning. It was Richard, calling from his home in Switzerland to ask me to sing the title role in Rodelinda, an opera. And anyway, when we were rehearsing with the orchestra for Rodelinda, he approached me and he said, oh, can I talk to you for a minute? And he asked if I would like to record with him. And on the inside, I was sort of going, ah! And on the outside, I said, of course, Maestro. Trying to be very cool about it. And at that point, I already had this sense, because I'd recorded a couple of albums, and I loved, you know, I love the recording process. And I loved these albums that I'd recorded, but they kind of didn't really reflect the live performance work that I do, and particularly in classical music. You know, it's so important to have a calling card by way of an album, if you're going to have albums at all, that reflects what you do live, so that, you know, people within the industry have a sense of what you do. And my albums to date didn't really do that. And so I really wanted to make an album, particularly of the bel canto repertoire. And so when Richard came along and said that he'd like to record with me, it was truly a dream come true. And in fact, after I'd met him at WIAV, the Wales International Academy, I'd kind of secretly dreamt, you know, daydreamt, you know, wouldn't it be amazing if I had the opportunity to record with him. So going and working with him on the album in April this year, at his home in Switzerland for a week, and then going to London and recording the album with the English Chamber Orchestra was a time I'll never forget. It was really special. That was one, it was a really, I couldn't believe it. He did express it to me in the time when I was with him. And I couldn't believe it. When I said I was going to sing it for him, he sort of like sat back in his chair and went, well, okay then, you know, let's hear it. I don't think he was expecting anything much. And then as I started to sing, he was sort of sitting back like this, and he sort of started leaning forward and forward and forward and forward until he was sort of like this. And then I was thinking, this is either really good or really bad. You know, I still couldn't really tell. And then at the end he said, you know, musically, I don't have any suggestions to make, you know, I was not expecting that, and, you know, and so on. And, it was interesting because, you know, some things that he has since said to camera, he hasn't said to me. And that's very humbling, you know, to...
essential for the growth of a musician, when a maestro does things, but the particular thing indirectly rather than directly.
I think so. I mean, the thing with me is it's water off a duck's back, like compliments or anything like that. I think, well, yes, but, you know, I need to do better, And for me, that's a really essential part of, you know, getting better, improving, that I never let myself off the hook. You know, there's so much work that I need to do and that I will always need to do on my voice, no matter what people say, you know, about my voice. So for me, on the one hand, it's great to have the endorsement and the support of people like, you know, Richard Bonning and Zubin Mehta. But on the other hand, there is always so much work to be done. And that's one of the things that I love about Western classical music so much, because, you know, you can refine and every time you sing something you find, you know, more nuances, more ways of really bringing out the emotion and the expression that the composer has kind of put into their work. So I think that, yeah, you know, I do think it's important. And it's funny because, you know, the name My Hero comes from one of the arias on the album, called My Hero from the Chocolate Soldier. And so the name kind of presented itself, and it was like, yeah, that makes total sense for the album because of this, you know, in a way it is a thank you, you know, a thank you record to all of the people who have really supported me and helped me develop as an artist, and it's still helping me develop as an artist. And, you know, so that's really special. But I think that everyone, you know, it comes down to, I think, finding people who can support you and who can inspire you and who can support you without judgment, you know, and who can let you grow and develop and keep on improving. And I know, you know, people within the music space who really inspire me and who I'd say are some of my music heroes, people like Richard Bonning and Zubin Mehta, who are two major influences. I mean, I grew up listening to their recordings as a little girl, you know, with my grandfather. He had a big record collection, and we used to sit and listen to all of these records together. And in fact, you know, with Zubin Mehta, the first time that I became aware of Zubin Mehta was when I was listening to Jesse Norman sing Four Last Songs and holding the LP cover with Mehta and Jesse Norman on this, you know. So things like that, it's just a really special thing to have those inspirations, both in terms of people who you might never meet, but also from people who are in your life who can really give you that support and that inspiration through their words and through their support. Oh, they're so different. Well, their conducting technique is very different. Their style of, I think, music is quite different. So Richard is very much kind of the bel canto, whereas Maestro Mehta is probably more, well, it's more instrumental with some vocal works. So there's a bit of a difference in, you know, in terms of the repertoire and also the conducting style, and also the tempi. So Richard would tend to, in general terms, probably take things slightly faster than Maestro Mehta. So they have slightly different tastes in terms of what will draw out the emotional expression in a work. And that's gold, you know, as an artist. It's what, you know, keeps it exciting to work with different conductors who, you know, you respect so deeply and who can show you different elements of a work and what is so special about a work. In such different ways. I love it. I love the differences and the similarities because they're both geniuses. They're amazing.
Absolutely.
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, but it's a good question. You know, I think that as a singer, and I don't know what it's like for, you know, and I'd love to sit down with some, you know, Indian classical music singers who are so refined and so extraordinary in their ability. Oh, I do. I really do. And, you know, the technical refinement that goes into that style of singing is just unparalleled as far as I'm concerned. It's just, you know, extraordinary. And again, so inspiring. But I think that, you know, one of the things about what one can bring is actually an ability and a discipline to not listen to oneself, to go with the sensations and to not think that, you know, what you can hear in your head is the same that's going to be coming sort of out there in the world. So I think that really being able to go with the sensations and go with, you know, your training and what you've practiced and what you know works is really important. But also making sure that, you know, you imbue your sound with as much timbral complexity and interest as possible, so that you sort of you might do one phrase in a slightly different way vocally to another phrase. Maybe one is slightly darker, maybe one uses kind of less of that darkness, as well as obviously different dynamics, so some bits louder and softer and so forth. And there are so many ways of kind of manipulating the line. A lot of the time it's right there on the page in front of you, and it's almost like an interaction between the artist, being the singer, and the composer and the conductor, and of course the conductor's influence on the orchestra. And I love that interaction because again, emotionally you can express a work in so many different ways, and as long as there's an authenticity of expression there, I think that's kind of what the audience is looking for, authenticity of expression. And also as an opera singer, making sure that there's a purity to the tone. So even though particularly in Western classical music, when you're working with a full orchestra behind you, vibrato is really important, because it's that oscillation that you get in the voice is part of what allows you to have the stamina and allows you to sing over an orchestra, but at the same time not letting it get too wide, not letting it impact negatively on the pitch. And that's one thing with Indian classical music that I find so amazing, that it's always perfectly on pitch. And which is the way that it should be all the time in Western classical music as well. And because of vibrato, it doesn't necessarily always come out that way necessarily. So I think that really going with sensation rather than listening to yourself too much is a good way to think about it. I think that I'm a perfectionist, and I ask a lot of myself. And alongside that, I had these two passions. One for psychology and for science, which I've always loved, and one for music and singing. And even as a little girl, I dreamt of being a singer when I grew up, and I was surrounded by musicians in my family. And so I had this kind of internal battle between science and psychology and music, and I wanted to get rid of my voice, and that choice that I had to make. I didn't want to have to make the choice. I wanted it to be taken away from me, and it just became sort of a way of taking away that choice. And it's funny because in a way, when I decided to open up and talk about my problems, and the challenges that I'd have, and everyone has struggles, and I've been so lucky in my life, and I'm very grateful for my life. But when I decided to open up about it, it was partly because for me I had started to really embrace the idea that self-compassion is such an important part, because if you can show compassion to yourself, then you can, I think, more easily and more quickly forgive yourself for things, recognise that they aren't the entirety of who you are, and you can move past them and move past the struggle, and find other ways of dealing with things. And I also think that Brene Brown, who is a psychological researcher and storyteller in the US, and she talks about secrecy being the food of shame, and if you take away the secrecy, then the shame has nowhere to kind of go, and so it tends to dissipate. And I'm a big believer in that. And also, I spend a lot of time working with younger people, so kind of people in their late teens, early 20s, who might be in the arts or who might be kind of struggling. And I wanted to share with them a little of my journey as a way of saying, you know what, you can have these moments in your life where things seem really tough and really dark, and you can move through them. And with hard work and perseverance, you can achieve your dreams, even if there are times where you think that nothing is possible for you. So that was kind of the reason for sharing. But certainly, in those times, I think it was a desire to take away the choice, and not have to think about singing, which is funny because I so desperately wanted to do it. I mean, now I think, why didn't you just sing? But that's what I'm doing now anyway, so it worked out. I don't fear for the future of opera, but I am aware that we as artists within the operatic tradition, we need to appreciate that things are changing, and we need to appreciate that, you know, particularly in this day and age, people are used to going along to concerts and really connecting on a personal level with the performers. And I think that in a way, you know, having people go along and see full productions of an opera where everyone is in character and you don't really get to connect at a personal level with, you know, those people, I think that there is more of an imperative now to introduce people to opera at a really high standard in a concert environment as well as, you know, in full production. And I think also, you know, really be consciously grateful for all the following that we have, and really, you know, consciously try and build our audience base and have that connection where we, you know, correspond and you know, really connect. It was funny, I was saying to someone the other day how my grandpa, in my lifetime, I remember he'd go to the post office 2 to 3 times a week, come home with these 2 big buckets full of mail. And he would answer every letter. And I think if he can do that, then as an artist, like I can answer like, you know, at best probably a few hundred a week, you know, of like, you know, fan mail on Facebook, which is so much easier than letters. And I think that, you know, there's a lesson in that, you know, the need for really connecting with people. So I think that, yes, we need to really make sure that we're contributing, that we're singing our best, that we're really connecting with our audience base. And I think if we do that, there is a future for opera and for that form of classical music. I think that it connects us in a really powerful way and a beautiful way to times past, and it can be a reminder of, you know, the continuity really of human emotion, and what we go through today is the same as what people were going through 200, 300, 400 years ago. And you know, I think that's a really special lineage to continue. It's the same with Indian classical music. I think the way that there are so many collaborations now, and sort of almost a renaissance of an appreciation of Indian classical music, and having those collaborations as well as having the, you know, the traditional classical music continue, is just a beautiful thing. And yeah, and I really hope to contribute in, you know, in my own way to Western classical music, which I love so much. There are many wonderful singers in Australia and from Australia. I'm so honoured to be kind of named as one of those people. But you know, at the end of the day, I just want to work hard and keep on improving, keep on learning, and contribute as best I can. And I don't really think about kind of the labels too much. Because there's no good that can come with being caught up in that. You know, that might, if anything, just kind of slow the progress that I want to make, and that I believe, you know, my art form needs one to make as an artist. So yeah, but it's wonderful to, you know, be on this journey, and it's so exciting. I'm loving every opportunity to sing, and you know, being here in India with the Australian World Orchestra and Maestro Zubin Mehta, you know, performing in his home country, in Mehta's home city.
A new audience.
Oh my goodness, yeah, a new audience. But also, you know, for me, I have no doubt this is going to be one of the most precious musical experiences of my life, and that's never going to change. Yeah. Hi, I'm Greta Bradman, and you can catch my interview with Suhas on radiomusic.com.